Hello all my beautiful sisters from those other misters, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my long overdue review of the Hindash Monochromance collection. So this collection consists of an eyeshadow palette, there is an eye and a lip pencil, there's 2 lip products, and then there is the colour fluid in Boy Tears, which is like a multi-use sparkle product. So I will specify by saying this collection was sent to me. Thank you so much to the Hindash team. I was so excited to receive this. I really wanted to try it, especially after absolutely adoring the Beautopsy palette. This changed the game for me, and this follows suit. So let's get into it. Now this palette retails for $70, I believe. Let me double check. Yes, it's $70. There are 6 pans in there, but each pan is a gradient essentially. And based on my experience with the Beautopsy palette, I found that these shades can basically create 3 different colors from each pan. So depending on where you dip into the pan, you can get one shade, another shade, or you can create a shade from mixing the 2 in the middle. Now what makes the Monochromance palette different to the Beautopsy palette is the shades. So Monochromance is going for more of a colourful vibe, whereas Beautopsy was a bit more traditional in its colouring. I would say this is kind of like the perfect bridal palette, the Beautopsy one, and Monochromance plays more with colour and maybe what you might consider a bit more mainstream with the online beauty community in terms of, you know, everyone seems to love colour. Some of you will know, and if you don't, I will admit this, I definitely do not love colourful eyeshadow as much as I used to. I much prefer these sort of softer, subtle, more neutral looks. It's just a preference these days, and the Beautopsy palette really ticked that box for me. I do love red eyeshadow. It's my absolute favourite eyeshadow colour if I'm going to wear a colourful look. So, you know, Beautopsy really ticked that box for me, and Monochromance also ticks that box for me. It's just a slightly different red. But what really ticks the box for me is actually the Hindash formula. These eyeshadows are very firmly pressed, but they are extremely finely milled. And when you put them on the eye, they blend themselves essentially. I was absolutely blown away by the Beautopsy palette. I thought it was probably one of the smartest palettes I've ever seen, to be honest. And when I saw this one, I was quite curious about how the colors would perform in that formula. So I put it to the test, and look, I've got thoughts. So let's get into it. I have demos as well, so you guys can see how these look when I put them on the eye. So I'm actually going to start from the bottom and work my way up because that's the order in which I created the looks. We're going to start with Forever and Ink. So when I started to put this shade on my eyes, I guess I was kind of thrown off and I was kind of not. The formula is Hindash to a T. If you use a Beautopsy palette, then you know these eyeshadows are not intensely pigmented. They are created to be built, essentially, to get the intensity that you want. But they're also very smooth, so you can get a really soft wash of colour if that's what you're going for. Based on my past experience with colourful eyeshadows having these insanely pigmented formulas, I would have to say that Hindash has deviated from the norm with this particular shade. It is subtle. It goes on kind of sheer and it offers a wash of colour. Now, because I don't really like blue eyeshadow as it is, I feel like whether it's richly pigmented or subtly pigmented, it's still just not for me. It's not really my cup of tea. So I don't think I'm ever going to be able to love this shade, but there is no denying that this is the Hindash formula. It goes on very, very smooth, and it has a subtlety to it. However, if you do want to build it up and make it more intensely colored, you can totally do that, and you can see that in my look. Now, when I was creating these looks, I used each individual pan, and I basically tried to create like some sort of gradient look using the lightest and the darker shade and then mixing the two together. I do think if somebody purchased this palette without having previous experience with the Hindash formula and they went straight in for that blue, they would potentially be disappointed because it looks like it's going to be something that it's not. It is not overly pigmented, it is not super rich. You do have to build it up to get color density essentially. Otherwise, these are quite sheer but very smooth, not, you know, they're not patchy or anything like that, but the formula allows them to be a sheer and soft wash of color. Now, in terms of like colorful shades having that formula, I definitely think it deviates from the norm. When you come, like if you're talking about these sort of more neutral shades or shades that you would find in the Beautopsy palette, I do feel like it works a lot better with those sort of shades because, you know, they're similar to our skin color. So when there's a sheerness behind it, it almost looks more beautiful than an intensely pigmented brown eyeshadow. It's like it lets your skin shine through essentially, which personally I feel is like, it's the way makeup should be. You should still be able to see who the person is underneath it. It shouldn't just be painted on. But with these colorful shades, I think there's going to be different expectations from people who are makeup lovers, and especially colorful makeup lovers, because a lot of what we've seen over the past years is intense, rich, crazy, pigmented, colorful eyeshadows. So I definitely think there will be people who buy this palette who are, they're going to be thrown off by this formula. Let's move on to the purple, which is Anti-Dote, so Antidote. After using the blue, I have to admit I was a bit worried about this. I was like, oh God, purples can be so hard to formulate, and you know, getting them to be smooth and look good on the eye, this can be difficult. But I have to admit that this was my favorite pan out of the whole palette. This one is just like, it's it and a bit for me. The look that I created with this, I just thought was so beautiful, and the purple shades in this palette, they complement my skin tone so beautifully. Like this, the Antidote is the winner for me. It's just divine. These eyeshadows also blended like, oh God, they blend themselves. It's like your makeup brush is a magic wand, swish and flick and it's done essentially. And that's what I really love about these eyeshadows. You can create a look so quickly that is so beautifully blended and looks so flattering on the skin, simply because the formula does all of the work for you. I had no issues with Antidote. I thought it worked just beautifully, like absolute perfection. I do think it went on smoother and nicer than Forever Inked did, and I don't know why that would be. Potentially it's the color pigment, so it's the part that makes the pan the shade that it is. So perhaps the blue pigments used just didn't blend quite as nicely as the purples do, but I love this shade. It was gorgeous. I look forward to using it again in the future. It will probably be a firm favorite for a very long time. Heartthrob is an absolute stunner as well. You guys know I love my reds, so I was very excited to try this. I do think this shade it's definitely red, but I would say it's more in that sort of orangey red and bordering on like brick tone red. I, again, love this one. I do think it is naturally more pigmented than both the purple and the blue. I'm not sure if you guys can really see, but I feel like it just goes on a bit smoother. There's a lot less building necessary if you are applying this a bit richer on the eye, essentially. But again, it blended beautifully, it applied beautifully, it was gorgeous. I am never going to complain about a red eyeshadow in a palette unless they say it's red and it's pink, but that's not this. In case you do have the Beautopsy palette as well, and you're thinking about buying the Monochromance, I will swatch the two sides or reds side by side. So there they are from the Beautopsy palette, and you'll be able to see the differences. It's much brighter in its coloring. They each bring something different to the table, and I think they would even pair well if you wanted to sort of change up your look and do a more, maybe like a bright red gradient into a deeper red gradient. Moving on to Heavy and Petal. So this is a pink gradient pan. Now I'm not a mega fan of pink eyeshadows, especially not this sort of pink. I like dusky pinks, rosy pinks, mauvey pinks, stuff like that. So take what I say with a grain of salt. I didn't love the look that I created with this one. I felt like, again, the pigment on this is very similar to the purple and the blue, where it has a lot of translucency to it. So this is one of the shades that will help people to use this as a multi-use palette. You definitely, of course, could also use the red as a blush. The purple, I think, would make a cool blush because, as you can see, it does have that translucency to it. So it's very easy to use it in that way. What I can say though is Heavy Petal went on the eye beautifully. And although the color isn't really my vibe, the formula is still what I was looking for from Hindash, which is great. Now there is a pink in the Beautopsy as well. It's Boy and Wonder. This one goes from more of a peach to a bright pink, so I will swatch that just so you can you know, get a vibe for how they differ if you have both of the palettes. So you can see there, they are different. Moving on to Match and Made. So that's this shade here, or this pan here. So this is a camel to, I'd say, a mid-tone brown. And I adored the look that I created with this particular pan. It's right up my alley of boring, basic makeup that blends itself. It took me, I don't know, maybe like 3 minutes to create the look, and that I live for that. Any eyeshadow that allows me to create a really beautiful, flattering look that is well blended. So if anyone is up close and looking at my makeup, it doesn't look patchy, it looks smooth, it looks like I spent time making everything perfect. That's what I want. That is what I want from my eyeshadow, but I want it to happen quickly. When an eyeshadow allows me to create a look that looks well put together, not patchy, so nice and smooth, really well blended, the colors complement my skin, everything looks perfect, in under 10 minutes, it's a winner for me. And that's what I love about this formula so much, especially these sort of nudie shades. It just wins my heart. It's perfection. In terms of the neutral looks that I created with this palette, this was my favorite. I just thought it was so flattering, really beautiful, and it's the type of makeup that I like to wear on a day-to-day basis. And the last pan we have is Alter Ego, which is this one on the top. And look, Alter is basically the shade of my skin tone. So I used this to set my eyeshadow base. You can barely even see it there. So essentially what I did was put down my eyeshadow base. So I use a MAC Painterly paint pot, and I typically like to set only between my crease and my brow. And I do that so that whenever I put any mattes on this area of my face and I want to blend them out to soften them, it just makes them easier to blend. I don't typically set over my eyelid because whatever I put on there, I want it to have a bit more of a punch and I want it to have better grip essentially. So I used that to set that area and it works beautifully for me. Then the Ego shade, which I would say is like, it's basically a contouring shade. I used this one on the outer corner and it's like, look, that pan in particular, Alter Ego, is what I would consider for me, and there will be other people that this works for, but it's not going to apply to everyone. It's like the perfect no makeup eyeshadow duo, essentially. You put it on and it just enhances like the natural contours of the eye. So if you're putting on a base and you put like a concealer over your eyelid or foundation over your eyelid, it kind of blanks everything out, makes it look not natural essentially. And that's sort of because you're like muting down the natural shadows that are created by the shape of your eye, whereas this is a sort of eyeshadow duo that just brings that back to life basically. So I love this. This was so quick. Honestly, it took me minutes. It took me longer to put Boy Tears over the top than it did to create the rest of the look. That eyeshadow blends itself. Ego, you put it on, it's blended. Like blending who? You don't need to blend it because when you put it on, it does it for you. There's no apply and then, you know, spend minutes blending out the edges. It does it on its own. So for me, the winners in this palette are the red and the purple and the two neutral pans. Absolutely divine and such a pleasure to work with, and I look forward to making this one just as dirty as I made my Beautopsy palette, because that's what happens when you use and love your makeup. Now let's move on to Boy Tears. Let's talk about this. So this retails for $25 and it is a color fluid in the shade Boy Tears. Now it comes with a doe foot applicator. And when you put it on straight from the wand, you can see there it's extremely reflective. It's like a foiled type of color fluid essentially. Now this has a little bit of that like sort of slippy silicone feel to it, and you have time to work with it but not much, so just be aware of that. Like I wouldn't be dotting this around your face and then you know, blending out one side and then going back to blend out another, because I did find that it dries quite quickly. But as you can see, if you want, you can apply this quite heavily and you can get that metal foil look, or you can blend it out and get that sort of glowy sheen. Now while we're here, maybe I will just put a little on the face and show you how it looks. I just use my finger to blend it out. I will say I'm not wearing powder these days because my skin's been so dry, but I have put this over a powder blush. So you can see it there. It does blend very easy while it is still wet, but if you let this sit, it will start to set and become more difficult to blend out. So just be aware of that. I noticed it when I popped it like on one eyelid and I felt like I had too much on my brush and I wanted a really soft application. So I took the brush and then worked on the other eye, and when I went back to fix the eye that I had originally placed some on, it had started to set. So just be aware of that. So you can get, I mean, you can see it's quite like, it's intense, and that's with it blended out. So, you know, it definitely offers glow. Now, I will say on the eye, I want more sparkle. I know when I did my first Hindash review, I was like, oh my God, bring out one of these palettes, but in like an intensely sparkly formula. I don't know if that would be, you know, difficult to formulate, and maybe he will in the future, but because that's where my love lies, like I'm always going to ask for it essentially. And I think that this product is the type of product that sort of gives you that happy medium. So if you want to add a bit of sparkle to a look, you can do it with this particular product. I think applying this, if you want that sparkle, that like, you know, sheen, I do think applying it with your finger is definitely the best way to do it, or a brush. However, I found even with a brush, sometimes it was difficult to get the right amount of product and it was easy to go overboard. If you want to apply it quite heavily, totally go in with the doe foot. You can totally do that. I have very small eyelids, so I'll just show you the shape of the doe foot next to my eyelid. So I do find that this guy packs too much product for me essentially, so I would only apply it with a brush just based on knowing my body and what works for me essentially. There is also an absolute boatload of product in this. It is 5 grams. It is going to last you a lifetime. I think this would also be really nice mixed in with a moisturizer and applied to the body. So there you go. You could also totally use this on the lips as well, because it has that sort of silicone-y like slip to it initially when you put it on, and then it sort of sets down. I think you would have quite a bit of freedom of using that on your lips if you wanted to add some sheen to them. If you're curious about staining, I've just taken those swatches off and no staining, which is great because that can be annoying. Next up we have the eye tone pencil in Intra. This is an eye pencil, retails for $19, and it is an absolutely beautiful, rich, intense brown shade. I do feel that there are tones of red and purple in here, which make it quite warm. Now, what I like about this pencil is it's a kohl formula, so it is very smooth, very pigmented, and if you want to, you can totally use this as like an eye base essentially, and you can, you know, blend it very easily, and you can see there it blends smoothly and simply. It's like it takes no work, there's no tugging, none of that jazz. Now, because it does have that much softer and easy to manipulate formula, it does mean if you're putting this on like your waterline, you might get a tiny bit of movement throughout the day where, you know, it might try to migrate down your face. Now, if you set under your eyes with powder, like if you put on concealer and then you set under there with powder, I doubt you're going to have any issues unless you naturally have quite oily skin. If you don't apply powder under here typically, something you can do if you want to help to keep this in place is take a tiny little blending brush like this and a tiny bit of setting powder and just dust ever so slightly under the lower lash line, tiny bit of powder. It will just help something like this, which is quite emollient, to not move basically. And that's how I combated working with this product. I love the color. I love using it to set my lower lash line and or putting it on my waterline and on my lower lash line and blending it out a little bit. It's a beautiful warm brown color, very flattering, but I do tend to get a bit of movement with cream eye products, you know, migrating down my face. So that's how I combat using this product. I would definitely say where this shines is something that you're using to like smoke out an eye look. If you're really good at taking like a little pencil brush and creating a smoky wing, this is perfect for that. I created a wing with it today, but I used a sharper brush because I'm not very good at creating a smoky wing. It's not really, it's not something I've mastered yet. I took one of these from Sigma. It's the EO6 brush. It's like the smallest razor sharp wing liner brush that I've ever experienced, basically. And I just loaded up my brush with product and created a wing. It applies beautifully. It's almost like using a gel liner out of a pot, so that might give you an idea of how smooth this is. It is in a pencil, a sharpenable pencil. That's fantastic if you are a professional makeup artist and you want to sanitize your pencils. Best way to do it, sharpen them and use isopropyl alcohol or another sanitizing spray product. So yeah, I really like this product. It's not usually something that I would go for. To be honest, if I was buying this collection, I probably wouldn't have purchased this because Kohl products aren't usually my jam. Like I mentioned, they do have a tendency to move. Kohl products don't set in place like a lot of more traditional, long wear pencil eyeliners that we see on the market these days. And based on my experience in the past, I wouldn't usually gravitate towards something like this because I know products do have a tendency to move on me. However, I feel like this does stay in place quite well for the type of product it is. It doesn't claim to be long wearing or budge proof, and it's not, but it really does hold its own, and I do see myself using this. I've used it with quite a lot of these looks after my first experience with it and realizing, hang on, this is actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be based on my experience with similar products in the past. I've gone ahead and used it for many of the looks. I particularly like putting this on my lower waterline and tight lining with it because I feel like it gives my eyes a little bit of definition without being as intense as black. Black can really make my eyes look beady and close them off. So this product actually surprised me. I think it surpassed my expectations, which is great. Then we have the lip tone pencil in Hush. Again, this retails for $19, and you know what, I think I might talk about, I'm dropping things. I'm going to talk about the lipsticks together because I feel like these guys just kind of go hand in hand. The lipsticks come in two different formulas. There's a matte balm and an ultra matte, is it? Yeah, ultra matte lipstick. These both retail for $30 each. The lip tone pencil in Hush, again, this retails for $19. It's a sharpenable wooden pencil. The formula is so smooth, beautifully pigmented, but not excessively thick. Now, I find with some lip pencils that have this like beautiful smooth formula where like barely touching and it goes on smooth and richly pigmented, so you're not like tugging along the lip line. You're not going to get any jagged edges or anything like that. It glides on. Sometimes when you get formulas like this, they can be quite thick and goopy. Usually what I like to do is take a color like this, put it on my lips, and then apply a clear lip gloss. You can totally do that with this and it just looks like a beautiful tinted thin lip gloss. No like goopiness or anything like that. Another thing that I like about these smooth, beautifully pigmented and thin formulas is the fact that when you start pairing them with the lipsticks, again, you're not getting heaps of product buildup. Your lips aren't looking goopy. I have dry lips, and I usually really struggle with making my lips look nice if I'm going through a particularly bad dry patch. And products like, you know, applying a lip liner and then a lipstick over the top, it's too much. But I have dry lips today, and I gotta say, I feel like these babies look pretty friggin' nice. And I'm wearing a matte lipstick. I'm wearing this and a matte lipstick. The matte lipstick is Call Me Peaches, and it's actually an ultra matte formula. And these retail for $30 each. This is a beautiful color, and I've got to say, I was scared of this. I'm always scared of matte lip products. When I say I have dry lips, I'm not joking. Like, it's bad. I have really dry lips. So I am scared of matte lipsticks because they're often very uncomfortable, and when I put them on, they look heinous. So bad. Like, I have no business wearing matte lipsticks. Now, this formula, as you can see, it's very smooth. The color is absolutely divine. This is a silicone-y formula lipstick. So, you know those like comfort mattes where they're, you know, silicone formula, so they give you the matte finish, but they're not like super dry on the lips. That's what this is. Now, I've tried quite a few of that type of formula in my time, and I can tell you right now, some of them are good and some of them are shit. This is not shit. This is a beautiful formula. I think Kat mentioned that they were a little bit similar to the Lisa Eldridge formula. I don't know, I haven't tried them, so I can't, you know, I can't speak on that. What I can say is, coming from someone who has very dry lips and is literally frightened of matte lipsticks, this is one I can wear. This one is very comfortable. It goes on beautifully. Look at it. Stunning. And this color is not straight up what I'm wearing today. You might be able to tell. I put this lipstick on, and then I took the lip pencil and I just deepened up the corners and like the outline of my lips, just to give it a bit more dimension and, you know, bring it more into those sort of like, you know, brownie tones. Although this is still brownie, but on the lips I feel like it's kind of more like, I mean, it's called peaches, but I feel like it kind of has an apricotish hint to it. It's really beautiful. Then the matte balm. Now, I think matte balm is a fair description for this lipstick. It does have that matte finish, and I mean, it's gripping to my hairs there, so, you know, it's not a very fair representation of how smoothly it goes on the lips. This is not as richly pigmented as the matte shade. This offers more of like a just bitten sort of stainy tint to the lips, but you can build it up if you want to. I feel like this is so pretty, just sort of like tapped over the lips. I would love him to see I would love him to see. I would love to see Hindash create more of these, like this type of formula in different shades, especially like nude shades, because I'm obsessed with nudes. What can I say? But the formula of this, again, is beautiful and very comfortable. This offers, again, it goes back to that no makeup look, where you see a product on someone's skin and you could mistake it for just like, oh, your lips are just that perfect and you're absolutely stunning. That's what this sort of product looks like. It can be a very natural appearance on the face. It doesn't have to be applied heavily. It can be applied in a way that it just enhances what you have and looks very natural and flattering. Or if you want a richer application, you can do that by building it up without it looking thick and goopy on the lips, which nobody wants that. So I think my takeaway from this whole collection is that Hindash is still doing his thing when it comes to this like naturally beautiful and enhancing makeup. And I really like that because I feel like that is actually quite lacking in the beauty industry at the moment. Everything is very like insta glam and heavy, and I mean we watch a lot of YouTubers, and camera makeup is not the same as real life makeup. You know, it's applied very heavily to look flawless on camera, and I feel like it's very difficult to find those more subtle makeup items these days. So I love what Hindash is doing, and I hope he continues to do it, and I look forward to what he's going to release in the future, because I feel like he is breaking the mold a little bit, and that excites me. Alright guys, I'm going to leave it there for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you again to the Hindash team for sending me this collection. I had so much fun playing with it. It's like a breath of fresh air. If you guys have any thoughts on this collection, let me know down in the comments. Did you pick anything up? I know after my first Hindash review with the Beautopsy palette, a lot of people were like, oh, I wasn't too sure about this, but I bought it because you said it was great and I loved it. So let me know, were you one of those people? Are you going to pick up the Monochromance palette? Let me know all of the things, and I will catch you in the next one.